Welcome to Family Matters, Legal Edition, a special monthly segment of the Business of Family podcast. I'm Tammy Buss, Family Business Advisor and founder of Blue Roots.
And I'm Yola Ventresca, Managing Partner at Lerners LLP. Together, we're diving into the legal issues that impact family businesses, from succession and shareholder agreements to conflict resolution and governance.
Whether you're in the founder's seat, part of the next generation, or advising a family-run company, this series is here to help you navigate the legal side of legacy with clarity and confidence.
Join us every third Tuesday of the month for real talk, real stories, and practical legal insights.
Because in family business, the law isn't just about protecting assets, it's about protecting relationships.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about governance and family businesses.
So exciting.
So when people hear the word governance, they often think of big corporations and boards of directors. But governance is just as important and perhaps more so in family businesses, I would think.
Well, you know what? And because I deal mainly with first, second, third is sort of my focus. I do deal with other generations, but there is no governance, right?
That's right.
Because you've never needed it before.
Yes.
As a founder generation, you just did what you wanted.
Right.
But really, governance is really just a way to make decisions. It's a playbook that you have. So when a decision comes up, you have the details on how to do that.
That's right.
And I think that's what's really important for family businesses. And we're going to talk about how to start putting some of that governance in place if you don't have it. But you're right. I think for family businesses, it's so important because the complexity of having a family is hard enough, and then when you layer on a business, it's multiplies by exponentially.
No, exactly.
So I think it's really important. So we're going to have this great conversation.
We are going to have this great conversation, and I think it's really important to emphasize that a lot of people don't think about this as being an important issue in the context of family businesses. We're going to tell you why you should not think that. And just coming at it from the legal point of view, I have an expertise in governance, so I've done work, with universities and municipal entities, all who have very sophisticated governance structures, and then some big companies, but also, with smaller or even more closely held family businesses who have come probably through working with someone like Tammy to learn the importance of a governance structure. And I can tell you, when that governance structure is not there, the legal side becomes much more complicated with things go sideways.
And again, one of the things that, I talk about to families at the beginning is understanding the three-circle model. And I talk about this on every podcast. Honestly, right. It's like over and over and over again, but really understanding the family component, the business component, and the ownership. And governance, it falls into that ownership compartment. There's actually two structures of governance. There's a family, family council.
Yes.
And then there's a board of directors.
Yes.
And when you are a founder generation, it doesn't matter your size, because I've got founders that are, $50 million companies that have no governance structure. So it's not the size of the company. It generally is based on the depth of the generations. Once something happens, then you start looking at how do we fix that? And that's generally when I get called in. And the main focus, mainly with families, is there's no governance in place. And we can start at things like roles and responsibilities.
Right, exactly.
Right? Particularly if you're a family business, right? Yeah. That's one of the main focuses of governance.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
And again, that's done through the board, even if you're a board of 4 family members.
That's right. And
right?
and those lines have to be clear, and those roles have to be defined.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if we're going to talk a little bit about the differences between family councils and board of directors, but really it gives clarity, around the family and then around the business structure itself.
Yeah.
And that's really what the governance component does.
Yeah.
And it also, sets you up for success, because without a good governance model in place, you're going to get conflict, right? And that's then when the legal side really becomes
listen, it can, I get called in on governance issues when there are really good structures in place. And those files can be very difficult. But when we're not working with any type of structure or framework, if we're starting the discussion as to how we're going to untangle ourselves from whatever issue has prompted someone to pick up the phone and call me, it just becomes much worse, much more difficult, and much more expensive.
Right.
Right.
And then, you know, the reasoning that you want to put governance in place is not just for the family or the business, but it's also for the banks and your suppliers, and people want to know what kind of structure you have. And again, it's understanding what the difference is between the governance in the ownership versus, you know, the policies and procedures in a business. Yeah. So it's different. Yeah. You know, things like, what are the rules around hiring family members? It's okay when you're a founder generation and you want your kids in the business, but you know, if you're in generation 2 or 3 and now you've got 4 or 5 branches of the family and now there's 20 people. Yep. You know, what's the rule?
What's the rule? And if it hasn't been discussed before. Yeah.
And I asked one of my families, fairly large family, and there's 3 siblings in it, working in the business now, adult children. So it's, you know, already transitioned to Gen 2. And you know, there's a bit of an issue around leadership. But
so leadership in terms of who is going to be the leader, or
who is the current leader?
Or who is the current leader?
Because it was sort of, you know, a decision to appoint this one family member. But it's basically title only because all the family members want
a say.
So this is where it starts to get complicated. And where you need to have some governance in place that says, here's the role.
That's right.
Who's qualified for this role? Oh, by the way, none of us are qualified for this role. You know, maybe we should look to outside, which happens a lot in family businesses.
And I've seen that as well on my side, where sometimes the resolution that we come to is that a third party is going to be brought in as a way to not only fix the issue at hand, but to preserve the familial relationship.
Well, and again, back to the board of directors. Now, the board of directors is what's, you know, looking out for the business.
Yeah. And and maybe we should provide some basic, some basic definitions for those listening to today. When we talk about governance, you know, it's not this really complex model. Just in plain English, it's rules, structures, and processes that guide decision making. And you know, we can talk about the difference between corporate governance and family business governance, and why, as you and I have seen, family businesses often, as the rule, resist formal governance.
Absolutely.
Right?
Because it seems like you are, you know, you don't trust people or you don't think you're qualified. But it does run into, again, from the business governance. So remember, the board of directors early on can maybe just be family. I don't like seeing just family. I like to have outside, people on a board, so external, so you're looking at it. But I mean, a lot of cases, the board is the same. So the lines become blurred as to what is the board's responsibility in decision making and guidance for the business, and then the business's role is to implement what the board wants. But the family council, although they might not all own, they have a vested interest in the business. So, you know, the board takes direction from the family. So again, when you're first or second gen, it can become quite muddy because family, board, you know, ownership, business is all the same. Yeah. But as you go deeper, it's more important on how you're going to run and how the decisions will be made. If you're going to, you know, third or fourth generation,
which, absolutely,
you know, is quite, gets quite deep.
Yep. No, I agree.
And a lot of people there, a lot of different perspectives. Yeah. But really is, you know, back to how do you even start?
Well, you start by calling Tammy.
Yeah. You start by having an agreement, and that can even be, you know, a lot of times, you know, shareholder agreements are not even considered part of a family. You know, one of the things you do is when you...
No, that's right.
You say, well, I need a shareholders agreement. Well, no, we're family. We don't even have to worry about that. Or, you know, how is this going to move forward if someone in the family passes? What happens to the shares? Do they continue down that bloodline? Do they come back? Are they redeemed? Like, what happens, right?
Yep.
And those, every decision is different. So it's not like we're telling you this is what you should do. Every family makes its own decisions.
Yeah, and I really wish that those listening and who are thinking, oh well, I don't have this yet, and I'm hearing that I need it, even though I trust my children implicitly. I would urge you to read some of the estate litigation decisions that are out there. I would urge you to talk to one of my colleagues at Lerners about some of the cases that they have had arise because people just could not bring themselves to have this discussion.
No.
And so, as I say, I mean, that support is there if it happens, but we want to get ahead of it, and we want to work to ensure that those what ifs are caught in an agreement ahead of time.
And again, back to, the business itself. So the business is responsible for the roles and defined, positions in the company. But the board, again, or the family will determine, is any family member, can they just work there because they're family? Or do you have to qualify for one of those positions? And that's key, because a lot of times I see arguments or discord in the family because of compensation, that everybody should be getting the same pay, but someone's traveling more, someone's working more, they got more experience, they've been there longer, and they're all getting the same pay, which can cause a bit of an issue. So again, is that a rule? Or is that just what's happened, and what does that look like?
Yeah.
Because the family can also have additional income based on dividends. And again, it's the board that would determine the dividends paid out. So if you're hiring a position that's a $70,000 position, if your child or member of the family applies for that position, should they get 100,000 because their other siblings get 100, or is it 70? But they still get to partake in, if they're part of an ownership or the family branch partakes in some of the dividends that the business produces, or that the board deems to be, handed out this year.
And absolutely, I mean, that example hits the nail on the head in terms of why these kinds of structures are needed, because you don't want mom or dad making that decision. You want to ensure that there is some arm's length decision making. Even in the case of, I see this sometimes, but when I need a valuation for a business and we're in litigation, and people looking at the outside, from the outside in, about how this business is being run and what is its value, will often take into account, are the proper governance structures in place?
Yes.
Are decisions being made arbitrarily? Are they, are they being made from by third party neutral? And if I could put my hands out right now, I put neutral in quotes, right? Neutral in quotes. So it also prospectively, has the ability to diminish or increase the value of your business, by putting these structures in place. Because I've seen investors sometimes get very skittish about these really lax situations where there's no structure in place. Yeah.
Well, succession, and again, succession applies actually in the business, the ownership, and in the family.
That's right.
Right. Because the family has its own governance, and that is around philanthropy and what are the rules and how you're going to act and behave, and all of those things are in the family dynamics. And then in the ownership, it really is about who can be an owner and what type of owner. Because I've got families that you have to work in the business in order to have ownership.
Yeah.
And I've got families that you can have ownership and not work in the business. So again, those decisions are generally made at a family level, which are then, forwarded to the board, or the family council will bring it to the board so that it's created in there, and then, move forward into the business. So there's a lot of different moving parts when it comes to governance, but think of every decision that a family has to make, and you can have that in writing somewhere. And you can have
Absolutely.
that contracts, they can be employment contracts, they can be all kinds of things. Because you can fire an employee, or a family member, and they can still have ownership.
Yep, exactly.
Right? Or, your family might own several businesses, and, the next gen isn't necessarily owners, but they still have a say or what they'd like to see happen. And you have that at the family level.
Absolutely.
Which then directs, because you can't have every family member on a board. But if you've got, you're Gen 3 and you've got 5 different branches now, then you might have a representative from each branch on the board, but your family meetings are going to include all 20.
That's right.
Right? So understanding that those
the differences between those models is huge. It's a huge issue.
But it's, you don't think of it as Gen 1, because at Gen 1 there's, maybe mom, dad, and 2 or 3 kids. And like, well, we don't need a family council. We're all here all the time. But those kids now have spouses, and they each have 3 kids.
That's right.
And they're now, young adults. And, what do you want to do with this business?
Yeah, and I'll give a shout out to the episode that we're going to do about family law and family businesses. Is that especially when spouses start entering the mix, it's really important that those decisions be had up front about what is the spouse's role if they are working in the family business,
or are they allowed to be in the family business?
Yes. Another question, right?
And I've seen that happen many times. One spouse is and the other one isn't. Well, why?
Yeah, and getting ahead of those issues, because I, as I said, just pointing our listeners to the episode that we're going to do on family law, that this is a real problem that comes up all the time, because this person is not only an in-law, they are also part of your business. And if there are ownership interests transferred to you, you can't, you can't just wave your wand and they never existed, as much as the spouse, the spouse that's a member of family might want it to be so. So I think that all of these things require proactive thinking. And as I've said, I've worked very closely with our family law group in these situations where I've had disputes come to me, and the governance structures that you're talking about are not there. The succession that you're talking about is not there, and we've had to untangle this from an employment, from a corporate, from a family law perspective.
And again, I think what happens in family business is we assume certain things, and so we don't look at it, like a business you would if you had a stranger as your partner.
Yeah.
If you and I were in partnership, we would have all these agreements in place. Can your spouse come in? Can your kids? Who can be an owner? Who couldn't be an owner? But if you're my sister, then we tend not to. We don't have those conversations. We get other conversations. So the business gets mixed in with all the family. So what I think is really important is back to family meetings, and having these family meetings around, certain items or certain agenda items. Whether it's talking about the governance structure, whether it's talking about philanthropy, or what our core values are as a family versus the business, and really defining this is a family meeting about family issues. This is a family meeting around ownership.
Yep.
And start to have those conversations, and they need to be. They should not be held at the Thanksgiving table or the Easter or whatever holiday you are together. Birthdays, anniversaries, it doesn't matter, but
isn't it always the case that I open a new file to read and I say, well, tell me what happened. It was Christmas Eve. It was, grandson's 5th birthday. And
yes,
we just got talking about these things over a few drinks. So, yeah, picking up over time.
Now, they'll see that is an appropriate time in a lot of cases, because as a family you might not be together all the time. Right? So if you have some in the business and some not in the business, having the family get-togethers is where you speak. But what I propose is that, yes, this is a good time. You're all home for the holidays. Then why don't you set aside a specific time or place that you can have those family discussions? So if everybody's home for the holidays, you say, you know what, Tuesday morning, From 8 till 10, we're going to have a family meeting. We're going to talk about this, and then we're going to, park it and enjoy the rest of our time. Or you can say, look we're going to set the den aside for a business discussion. If you want to talk business or you need to have a discussion, you go into the den, but it can't be past 4:00 because it's family time. So you can set parameters, because I get it. People say, well, we're never all together. It's hard to get everybody together with the kids.
That's right, yeah.
So I do get that.
Yeah.
But you still have to set the parameters.
Yeah, I was more talking about a situation where I think the eggnog has been flowing.
Oh, yeah.
So
well, that you can't always stop.
Right, yeah.
But no, you're absolutely correct that most of the time it is just at a dinner table, and it's not at a set meeting.
Yeah.
And what I try to do with my clients is to have them have separate meetings with agendas that you can follow, and that there's notes and you know what can happen or what's going to happen. Someone's in charge of making sure that these get documented, or whatever the outcome is of those meetings. Because sometimes it's like a one topic meeting because it's so big and so deep that you can't have more than one discussion.
I would think that for some people listening, they think, okay, well, this sounds very daunting to get all this governance in place. And I think that what, Tammy and I would say to that is, this can be an iterative process. Start small, start
Baby
with
steps.
one meeting,
Yeah.
once a month, and
There's got to be
something dry. Put something in the calendar, right?
Yeah, you have to have it in there, and then there's always going to be an issue that you need to discuss.
Right.
And one of the things that I do as a family business advisor is I'm talking to the family separately. And they'll open up to me differently than they open up if your dad or sister or brother's in the room, because family's important and they don't want to rock any boats, so they don't want to mention it. But when they talk to me, a lot of times they have the exact same issues, except they won't bring them up.
That's right.
So for me, as a family business advisor, reviewing and saying, here's some things I think you need to have roles and responsibilities, or they're outdated. I don't have to say, well, Yola said that, she can't keep her brother accountable because there's no job description. That might be something that comes out of that meeting.
That's exactly right.
But they don't want to say that.
That's right.
But I can say that.
And it's so interesting how our roles are similar in that way, because, depending on the nature of the dispute, sometimes I'm representing some of the family members, sometimes I'm representing all of them. They've all signed waivers about conflicts, etc. And, you get one of them in the room and they say, my brother has a really bad gambling addiction, and nobody wants to confront it.
Nobody wants to talk about it.
My parents are in denial, and so that is a piece of information that that comes out, and perhaps it's come out at an inopportune time, but it underscores for me the importance of the roles that we play in terms of having those discussions proactively and before the business finds itself in a perilous position, which is really could have been avoided by hashing out some of these personal issues.
Yes, and I think what's hard is to do that without a third party facilitator.
Very hard.
Whether it's you or me or someone like that, because then it just becomes a personality. That you always or you never.
It's the history.
Absolutely, it all comes out, and not focusing on the true issue at the moment. And once it's done, you tend to have, there's a policy and a procedure. There's part of the governance.
That's right.
Say, okay, if this happens,
That's right.
this is how we do it. That's not to say that you can't change the governance structure as a business evolves or as you go deeper into the generations. But to have something to go back on and say, well, I'm sorry, your spouse cannot come into the business because we have a rule against spouses. Or absolutely your spouse can come into the business. They have to apply for a role like anybody else.
That's right.
Or whatever. Every family is different. And that's what I want to stress. But they're all the same. They're all different, but they're all the same.
It's true.
You have the same issues, but your way to deal with it is different. I have families that they're not allowed to have family members in the business. I've had a business where they had to let go all the family members because the decision was moving forward, it was best for the family and the business not to have the family members.
Yeah.
And that's a hard decision, but you can make that.
It is a very hard decision. And similarly on my end, as I say, I'm seeing things in retrospect, which is, and that vision is 2020, but there you see how this family has toiled with not wanting to have a sensitive conversation, not wanting to make a hard decision, and then the consequences of not doing so or putting those governance structures in place has come back. And what we try to do, and bringing people like you, Tammy, of course, because I know that you do this work when things go south too. But working with people who have expertise in these areas, is that we try to, after we've dealt with the fire, set up these structures moving forward. So it's not just dealing with, the calamity at hand, so to speak, but also ensuring that if a storm comes rolling through, next time we're in a better position to withstand it.
Absolutely. And, it's not about making something more cumbersome. It's about protecting relationships.
That's right.
And, we can pick up the paper, flip over our iPad and read all about these stories, these big family businesses who have tons of issues that, we're all over the paper. Think about the McCains, there's Molson's, like every big family, it hits the paper. But they have the same issues that smaller family businesses who are not going to hit the papers have. Exactly. Right? They're just larger numbers attached to it.
That's right.
So having the governance in place, so the rules in place, the handbook, whatever you want to call it, in place, protects the family and the relationships going forward. So it might be a hard conversation to have, to bring that forward, but you open up that conversation, you all agree that this is how we want to handle something moving forward. It protects the business, sets you up for success, not for failure.
Yeah, and I would underscore there, something that I've said to clients when I am actually in the beneficial position of not having had something go wrong, and people are asking for advice about, employment contracts or what agreements they should have in place, for their business, and we talk about governance and there's resistance. I say, think about sitting in a courtroom across the aisle from your sister or your brother on the other side, and your text messages between each other being read in court, as evidence of who had decision-making authority. What do you think is going to be more uncomfortable? Right?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. This is a protection for everybody.
That's right.
Every family business I talk to, they say family is the most important. We don't want to do anything that disrupts the family relationships. But by not having those conversations, you threaten the whole family and the business relationships, everything.
And just, launching off something you said, businesses big and small, we talk about these large family businesses where they're in the papers, and then these small family businesses where, nothing they do will hit the papers, which is good. But but the importance of those relationships is the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
No matter who you're talking to.
Absolutely. Well, here we are.
We're
at the end of another podcast.
Yes.
This is great.
This is great. You're a fabulous co-host.
Oh, I think I thought the same of you.
Thank you.
Anyway, I hope you're all enjoying this episode of governance.
Yes.
Or legal matters.
Yes. So, and please reach out to us if you have
questions or concerns or
topics or comments about this episode. We'd love to hear from you.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Family Matters Legal Edition. We hope today's conversation gave you something to think about or talk about in your own family business.
If you enjoyed the episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with someone who'd benefit from hearing it.
Have a legal question or topic you'd like us to cover in a future episode? Reach out. We'd love to hear from you.
Until next time, remember, in family business, what's legal is personal. Take care. The information shared in this podcast is for general educational purposes only and is not intended as legal advice. Listening to this podcast does not create a lawyer-client relationship. For advice specific to your situation, please consult a qualified legal professional.